Dr. Sofia Marin's hands were steady as she stitched the gunshot wound of the unconscious stranger on her clinic table, unaware that the man bleeding before her was Rafael DeLuca, the most dangerous Mafia boss in the city. When his dark eyes finally opened and locked onto hers, his first words weren't thank you, they were a command to know her name. And from that moment, Sofia's quiet life shattered. Rafael's version of gratitude wasn't flowers or a simple thank you. It was guards stationed outside her apartment, luxury gifts appearing at her door, and his imposing presence showing up at her clinic whenever he pleased. When she demanded he leave her alone, he leaned close with that infuriating smirk and whispered words that made her heart race and her world tilt. You saved my life, now it's yours too. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The rain hammered against the windows of Sofia's small clinic in the heart of Brooklyn as she finished updating patient files on her outdated computer. It was nearly midnight on a Tuesday, and she should have closed hours ago, but paperwork always seemed to multiply when she wasn't looking. The clinic served the underprivileged neighborhood she'd grown up in, and Sofia took pride in being available to people who couldn't afford fancy hospitals or judgmental doctors. At 28, she'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, and any semblance of a social life to build this practice from nothing. She stretched her tired shoulders and was about to shut down for the night when she heard frantic pounding on the front door. Sofia froze, her hand hovering over the light switch. The neighborhood wasn't exactly safe after dark, and she'd learned to be cautious. But then she heard a woman's voice, desperate and pleading. Please, someone help. He's dying. Sofia's medical training overrode her caution. She rushed to the door and yanked it open to find a woman in her 50s, with tear-streaked makeup and a younger man struggling to support someone between them. The injured man's head hung forward, dark hair plastered to his face with rain and sweat. And even in the dim streetlight, Sofia could see the blood soaking through his white shirt. Get him inside now, Sofia commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline spike. She held the door wide as they half-carried, half-dragged the man through the entrance. His expensive leather shoes scraped against her worn linoleum floor, leaving traces of blood in their wake. They maneuvered him onto the examination table in her main treatment room, and Sofia immediately began cutting away his shirt. The fabric was designer, she noted absently, probably worth more than her monthly rent. Beneath it, she found what she'd feared, a gunshot wound to his left side, still bleeding freely. What happened? Sofia asked, already pulling on gloves and gathering supplies. Her mind ran through the protocols, assess the wound, stop the bleeding, stabilize the patient, then figure out whether to call the police. The woman started, then stopped, exchanging a glance with the younger man. There was an accident. Sofia looked up sharply. This was no accident. She'd seen enough gunshot wounds during her emergency room rotation to know the difference. But the woman's eyes held a warning, and the younger man's hand had moved to his jacket in a way that made Sofia's skin prickle with unease. I need to know if the bullet is still inside, Sofia said instead, focusing on what mattered. How long ago did this happen? 20 minutes, maybe 30, the younger man answered. His accent was Italian, thick and rough. Please, dottoressa, you must save him. Sofia didn't respond. She was already examining the wound, her trained fingers gentle but efficient. The bullet had entered from the front, and from the exit wound she found on his back, it had passed through cleanly. That was good news. The bad news was the amount of blood loss and the possibility of internal damage. I need to clean and close this, but he should really be in a hospital, Sofia said. This is beyond what I can do safely here. No hospital, the woman said firmly. No police. You help him here and you'll be rewarded generously. You understand. It wasn't a question. Sofia met the woman's eyes and saw steel beneath the tears. These people were dangerous, that much was obvious. But the man on her table was dying, and Sofia had taken an oath. She couldn't turn him away, even if common sense screamed at her to call for help. Fine, Sofia said, but you two need to step outside. I can't work with an audience, and I need space. The woman looked like she wanted to argue, but the younger man touched her arm. Come, Mama, the doctor knows what she does. We wait outside. Once they left, Sofia took a deep breath and focused entirely on her patient. She started an IV line. pushing fluids to combat the blood loss. Then began the painstaking process of cleaning the wound. He stirred slightly when she irrigated the entry site, a low groan escaping his lips. But he didn't wake. That was a blessing. She didn't have the anesthesia to keep him properly sedated for what she needed to do. As she worked, Sofia found herself studying his face. Even unconscious and gray with blood loss, he was striking. Strong jaw, straight nose, dark eyebrows that would probably be expressive when he was awake. His hands, now limp at his sides, were large and surprisingly elegant, with long fingers that looked like they might belong to a pianist, rather than someone who'd been shot in what was clearly criminal activity. It took her nearly 2 hours to clean, stitch, and bandage the wound properly. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking outside her windows, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The man's color had improved slightly, and his breathing was steadier. Sofia checked his vitals one more time, satisfied that he was stable for now, then went to update the people in her waiting room. The woman jumped up the moment Sofia appeared. "Is he?" she started. "He's stable," Sofia said. "The bullet passed through cleanly, which is good. I've closed both wounds and started antibiotics. He's lost a lot of blood, but if infection doesn't set in, he should recover. He needs rest, fluids, and monitoring for the next 48 hours at minimum." The woman's relief was palpable. She crossed herself quickly. "Thank you, Dottoressa. Thank you so much." "You've saved," she paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "You've saved someone very important to us." Sofia nodded, suddenly exhausted. She gave them instructions for wound care, signs of infection to watch for, and pain medication dosages. The younger man wrote everything down carefully in a small notebook. "How much do we owe you?" the woman asked, reaching for an expensive-looking handbag. "My usual fee is $200 for emergency surgery," Sofia said. But given the circumstances, she hesitated, unsure how to price treating what was obviously a criminal's gunshot wound. The woman pulled out a thick envelope and placed it on Sofia's desk without opening it. "This should cover it," she said. "And Dottoressa, you've seen nothing tonight. No one was here, you understand." Sofia looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "I understand," she said quietly, though her conscience was already nagging at her. She was supposed to report gunshot wounds. It was the law. But something about these people made her certain that following the law would be more dangerous than breaking it. "Good," the woman said. "We'll have someone come for him in a few hours. He shouldn't be moved yet, yes. Ideally, he'd stay here for at least 24 hours, Sofia said. But if you must move him, do it gently and make sure he stays horizontal. Any jostling could reopen the wounds." They agreed, and Sofia left them with her patient, retreating to her small office to collapse in her chair. She stared at the envelope on her desk for a long moment before finally opening it. Her eyes widened. There had to be at least $10,000 inside, maybe more. It was more money than she'd seen in months, enough to fix the broken autoclave, replace her ancient X-ray machine, and still have enough left over for supplies. Sofia told herself she'd earned it. She'd saved a man's life, after all. The fact that he was probably a criminal didn't change that. But as she locked the money in her desk drawer, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with the devil. She must have dozed off at her desk because the next thing she knew, sunlight was streaming through her windows and someone was knocking on her office door. Sofia jerked awake, her neck protesting the awkward angle she'd been sleeping at. "Come in," she called, rubbing her eyes. The younger man from last night stepped inside. He'd cleaned up, his clothes no longer blood-stained, but his expression was serious. "Dottoressa Marin," he said, "he's awake. He's asking for you." Sofia's stomach clenched. She'd hoped to never see these people again, to pretend last night had been a strange dream. But she followed him to the examination room, where her patient was now sitting up slightly, supported by pillows. The woman from last night stood beside him, and there were 2 new men in the room as well, both large and intimidating in dark suits. The patient's eyes locked onto Sofia the moment she entered, and she felt the impact of that gaze like a physical force. They were dark brown, almost black, and held an intensity that made her want to step back. But she held her ground, lifting her chin as she approached to check his bandages. "So," he said, his voice rough from sleep and pain but carrying an unmistakable authority. "You're the angel who saved my life. I'm a doctor, Sofia corrected, keeping her tone professional as she examined his wound. The stitches looked good. No signs of infection yet. How's your pain level? Manageable, he said, though she could see the tightness around his eyes that suggested otherwise. What's your name? Sofia, she answered automatically, then cursed herself. She should have lied, given a fake name. But something about his direct gaze had made her respond truthfully. Sofia, he repeated, as if tasting her name. Beautiful, Italian. I'm actually Spanish, Sofia said, finishing her examination and stepping back. The name is from my mother's side. Now, you need to rest, and honestly, you should be in a hospital. We've been over this, the woman interjected. No hospitals. The patient, however, was still watching Sofia with that unnerving focus. You live alone, Sofia Marin, he asked. Sofia stiffened. That's none of your business. I treated your wound. Our transaction is complete. You can leave whenever your people feel you're strong enough to move. Transaction, he repeated, and there was something dangerous in his smile. You think this is just a transaction? What else would it be, Sofia asked, crossing her arms. You were shot, I patched you up, you paid me, done. He laughed, then winced at the pain it caused. Oh, Dottoressa, you have no idea what you've done, do you? You didn't just save anyone, you saved Rafael DeLuca. The name meant nothing to Sofia. She didn't follow crime news, didn't pay attention to the underworld that everyone in the neighborhood whispered about. But the reactions of everyone else in the room told her she should have recognized it. The woman, whom Sofia now understood was his mother, looked proud and worried in equal measure. The younger man had straightened to attention, and the two suits had moved closer, as if protecting their boss even in a rundown clinic. I don't care who you are, Sofia said, though her heart was pounding. You're still a patient who needs rest and proper care. So if we're done here, I have other people to attend to. We're not done, Rafael said, his eyes never leaving hers. Not by a long shot. You saved my life, Sofia Marin. That means something in my world. It means I'm in your debt. You paid me, Sofia pointed out. Very generously, I might add. Debt cleared. Money, Rafael said dismissively. Money is nothing. What I owe you is protection, loyalty. You're under my care now. I don't need your care, Sofia said firmly. I need you to leave my clinic and never come back. The room fell silent. Even Rafael's mother looked shocked at Sofia's bluntness. But Rafael himself smiled wider, and there was something almost delighted in his expression. You're either very brave or very foolish, he said. I can't decide which. I'm neither, Sofia said. I'm just a doctor who wants to do her job in peace. So thank you for the payment, I hope you recover well, and goodbye. She turned to leave, but Rafael's voice stopped her. I'll see you again, Sofia Marin. Very soon, Sofia didn't respond. She walked out of the examination room and straight to her office, where she locked the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. What had she gotten herself into? Who was Rafael DeLuca? And why did his name make everyone else look so afraid? She pulled out her phone and typed his name into the search bar. What she found made her blood run cold. Rafael DeLuca, 34, suspected head of the DeLuca crime family, one of the most powerful mafia organizations on the East Coast. There were grainy photos of him at various events, always in expensive suits, always surrounded by dangerous-looking men. Articles speculated about his involvement in everything from racketeering to murder, but he'd never been convicted of anything. The man was untouchable, powerful, and apparently now interested in her. Sofia spent the rest of the day in a daze, seeing patients but barely registering their faces. By the time she locked up that evening, she'd convinced herself that she'd never see Rafael DeLuca again. He'd said he'd be back, but that was just talk. Rich, powerful criminals didn't waste time on small-time doctors in Brooklyn. She was wrong. The next morning, Sofia arrived at her clinic to find a black SUV parked outside. Two men in suits stood by it, and when they saw her, one of them approached. Miss Marin, he said politely, Mr. DeLuca wants to ensure your safety. We'll be stationed here during your working hours. Sofia stared at him. I don't need guards, she said. Mr. DeLuca insists, the man replied. His tone was respectful but firm, making it clear this wasn't negotiable. Sofia wanted to argue, but what could she do? Call the police and tell them a mafia boss was having her protected. That would go well, so she swallowed her protests and went inside, trying to ignore the fact that she now had bodyguards. It got worse. Over the next few days, gifts started arriving. First, it was flowers, expensive arrangements that made her small clinic look like a garden. Then came boxes from high-end stores, containing designer clothes and shoes that Sofia would never wear. She tried returning everything, but the delivery people always had instructions not to take anything back. On the fourth day, Rafael himself showed up. Sofia was with a patient cleaning a child's scraped knee when her receptionist, Maria, knocked on the door with wide eyes. "Dr. Marin, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important." "Tell him to wait," Sofia said, focusing on the little boy who was trying very hard not to cry. "You're being so brave," she told him with a warm smile. "Just one more bandage, and you're all done." When she finished and sent the child off with his grateful mother, Sofia steeled herself and walked out to the waiting room. Rafael sat in one of her plastic chairs, looking completely out of place in his three-piece suit and expensive shoes. The other patients were staring at him with a mixture of curiosity and fear, and Sofia's guards had positioned themselves at the exits. "Mr. DeLuca," Sofia said, keeping her voice professional. "If you need a follow-up examination, I can see you after my other patients." Rafael stood, moving a bit stiffly but with surprising grace for someone who'd been shot less than a week ago. "I'm not here as a patient," he said. "I'm here to take you to lunch." "I don't have time for lunch," Sofia said. "I have appointments all afternoon. Cancel them," Rafael said simply. Sofia's temper, usually well-controlled, flared. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Listen to me very carefully, Mr. DeLuca. I appreciate that you paid me well for treating your injury. I even appreciate the excessive security, though it's unnecessary. But I am not one of your employees. You don't get to order me around or disrupt my life because you feel you owe me something. These people," she gestured to her waiting room, "they need me. They don't have anywhere else to go. So no, I will not cancel my appointments to have lunch with you." Rafael studied her for a long moment, and Sofia couldn't read the expression on his face. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. "You're right," he said. "I apologize. It was presumptuous of me." Sofia blinked, not expecting that response. "Oh, well, good. However," Rafael continued, "I do need to speak with you. It's important. What time do you close today?" 6, Sofia said warily. "I'll be back at 6, Rafael said. "Please give me 15 minutes. That's all I ask." Before Sofia could respond, he turned and walked out, his guards falling into step behind him. Sofia stood there, aware that every patient in her waiting room was now staring at her with questions in their eyes. Maria appeared at her elbow. "Boss, who was that man? And why does he have so many guards?" "Just a former patient," Sofia said, trying to sound casual. "Come on, who's next?" But as she returned to work, Sofia couldn't stop thinking about Rafael DeLuca and what he might want to talk to her about at 6 o'clock. When the hour arrived, Sofia had convinced herself not to be there. She'd even packed up early, planning to slip out the back. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe something else entirely, made her stay. At 6 on the dot, Rafael's SUV pulled up outside, and he walked in alone this time. Sofia was waiting in her office, having sent Maria home. She'd left the door unlocked, and Rafael entered without knocking, carrying a bag that smelled delicious. "You said you didn't have time for lunch," he said, setting the bag on her desk. "So I brought dinner, Italian, from my family's restaurant. I hope you like pasta." Sofia wanted to refuse, but her stomach betrayed her with a loud growl. She'd skipped lunch entirely, too busy with patients, and whatever was in that bag smelled amazing. 15 minutes, she reminded him. But she started unpacking the containers. There was homemade pasta with a rich red sauce, fresh bread, and even a small tiramisu. Rafael sat down across from her desk, and for a few minutes, they ate in silence. Sofia had to admit, the food was incredible. The pasta was perfectly cooked, the sauce rich and complex with flavors she couldn't quite identify. "My mother made it," Rafael said, watching her. "She insisted. She says she owes you everything. You don't owe me anything," Sofia said. "I was doing my job." "You saved my life," Rafael said. "In my world, that creates a bond." whether you want it or not. What does that mean exactly? Sofia asked, setting down her fork. All these gifts, the guards, showing up at my work. What do you want from me, Mr. DeLuca? Rafael, he corrected. And what I want is simple. I want to keep you safe. I was perfectly safe before I met you, Sofia pointed out. Were you? Rafael asked. This neighborhood, it's not exactly secure. Your clinic has no real security system. You work late, often alone. Anyone could walk in, anyone could hurt you. And whose fault is that? Sofia asked. I was anonymous before. Now I'm the woman who saved Rafael DeLuca's life. You've made me a target. Rafael's expression darkened. Which is exactly why you need protection. My enemies, if they knew what you did for me, yes, you could be in danger. So the guards stay. For how long? Sofia asked. Forever. If necessary, Rafael said seriously. Sofia laughed, but there was no humor in it. This is insane. You can't just take over my life because I stitched up your wound. I'm not taking over your life, Rafael said. I'm protecting it. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting, Sofia said. She stood up, suddenly needing space. Mr. DeLuca, Rafael, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't live like this. I can't have armed guards at my clinic, scaring my patients. I can't have expensive gifts showing up at my door. I'm just a simple doctor trying to help people. All of this, it's not my world. Rafael stood as well, and Sofia was reminded of how tall he was, how he seemed to fill the room with his presence. Then let me make it your world, he said quietly. Let me show you that you don't have to be afraid. I'm not afraid of you, Sofia said, though her racing heart suggested otherwise. Good, Rafael said. You shouldn't be. I would never hurt you, Sofia. You saved my life, and I'm going to spend the rest of mine making sure you're protected, cared for, happy, whether you like it or not. You can't force someone to accept your care, Sofia said. Watch me, Rafael replied, but there was a hint of humor in his eyes now. I'm very persistent. I'm very stubborn, Sofia countered. I know, Rafael said, and his smile was almost fond. It's one of the things I like about you. Sofia didn't know what to say to that. She looked at this man, this dangerous, powerful criminal, who was looking at her with something that might have been admiration, and she felt completely out of her depth. I should go, Rafael said, reading her discomfort. But the guards stay, and I'll be back. You're always back, Sofia muttered. Always, Rafael agreed, and there was a promise in his voice that made Sofia's skin tingle. After he left, Sofia sat back down at her desk and put her head in her hands. What was happening to her? A week ago, her biggest problems were billing issues and a broken autoclave. Now she had a mafia boss claiming ownership of her life and safety. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and if she was being honest with herself, just a tiny bit exciting. The next few weeks established a new normal, as strange as that concept seemed. The guards became a permanent fixture outside Sofia's clinic, though they learned to be less conspicuous after she complained they were scaring her patients. Rafael visited 3 times a week, always bringing food from his family's restaurant, always staying for exactly the time she'd allow him and not a minute more. He never pushed for more than she was willing to give, which Sofia found surprisingly respectful for a man who declared her under his protection without her consent. She learned things about him during those visits. He asked about her work and actually listened when she talked about the challenges of running a clinic in an underserved community. He told her about his family, carefully avoiding any discussion of the illegal aspects of his business, but painting a picture of tight-knit loyalty and old-world values. My father started with nothing, Rafael said one evening. He came from Sicily with $2 and a dream. Everything we have, he built with his own hands. And what did you build? Sofia asked before she could stop herself. Rafael's smile was wry. I took what he built and made it stronger, protected it, expanded it. I'm good at what I do, Sofia. Which is, Sofia prompted. Taking care of my family, Rafael said. That's all that matters. Sofia wanted to point out that his business hurt people, destroyed lives, but she held her tongue. She wasn't his confessor or his judge. She was just someone who'd accidentally gotten tangled up in his world. But as time passed, Sofia realized she was becoming less tangled and more invested. She looked forward to Rafael's visits. She found herself thinking about him during the day. wondering what he was doing, whether he was safe. The fact that he'd been shot once meant it could happen again, and the thought of Rafael bleeding out somewhere without her to help made her chest tight with fear. It was absurd. She barely knew him. He was a criminal. She should be pushing him away, not caring about his safety. But Sofia had never been good at doing what she should when her heart was involved. The turning point came on a cold Friday evening in early December. Sofia was working late again, finishing up paperwork, when she heard shouting outside. She rushed to the window and saw 3 men approaching her guards. They were armed, and their body language was aggressive. Sofia's first instinct was to call the police, but then she thought about what that would mean. Questions she couldn't answer, attention she didn't want, possible retaliation against her or her patients. Instead, she called the only person she could think of. Rafael answered on the first ring. "Sofia," he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you tonight. There are men outside my clinic," Sofia said quickly. "They're armed. They're confronting your guards." "Rafael, I don't know what to do." The change in his voice was immediate. "Get away from the windows. Lock yourself in your office. Do it now." "I am," Sofia said, already moving. She locked her office door and backed away from the windows. "What's happening?" "Stay on the line with me," Rafael said. "Don't hang up. My men know what to do, but I'm coming to you. 10 minutes. "Rafael," Sofia started, but she didn't know what she wanted to say. "Be careful, please." "Always," he said softly. "For you, always." Sofia sank down behind her desk, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the sound of Rafael's voice as he gave orders to someone else, probably his driver. Outside she could hear more shouting, then gunshots. Sofia flinched, her heart hammering in her chest. "Sofia," Rafael said urgently. "Talk to me, are you okay?" "I'm okay," Sofia said, though her voice was shaking. There was shooting. "Rafael, what if someone's hurt? What if—" "My men know how to handle themselves," Rafael said. "And they will protect you with their lives. Just stay where you are. I'm 5 minutes away." Those 5 minutes felt like an eternity. Sofia stayed huddled behind her desk, listening to the sounds outside, gradually quiet down. When she finally heard Rafael's voice calling her name, she scrambled up and unlocked the door. He burst in, and Sofia got her first look at Rafael truly worried. His eyes were wild, his carefully groomed appearance disheveled, and he had a gun in his hand that he quickly holstered when he saw her. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his hands already running over her arms, her shoulders, checking for injuries. "No, I'm fine," Sofia said. "What happened? Are your men okay?" "They're fine," Rafael said. "The men who came, they were rivals. They wanted to send a message, but they failed, and they won't try again." Sofia realized she was shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her weak and scared. Rafael seemed to notice because his expression softened, and he pulled her against his chest without asking permission. "You're safe," he murmured into her hair. "I promise you, Sofia, you're safe." Sofia let herself lean into him, just for a moment. He was warm and solid, and his arms around her felt like a shield against the world. She could hear his heart beating fast beneath her ear, matching her own racing pulse. "This is my fault," Sofia said. "If I'd never helped you, if I'd just called the police that night." "If you'd called the police, I'd probably be dead," Rafael said, "and the world would be a darker place for it." Sofia pulled back to look at him. "You're so arrogant," she said, but there was no heat in it. "It's not arrogance if it's true," Rafael said, and then he did something that shocked her. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was gentle, almost questioning, as if he was giving her the chance to pull away. But Sofia didn't pull away. Instead, she kissed him back, her hands fisting in his jacket, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, becoming urgent and desperate, and Sofia forgot about the danger outside, forgot about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. All she knew was Rafael, the taste of him, the feel of his hands in her hair, the way he made her feel safe and reckless all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Rafael rested his forehead against hers. "You saved me," he said quietly, "and now you're mine. I can't let you go, Sofia. I won't." Sofia should have protested. She should have pushed him away and told him he was being ridiculous. But instead, she heard herself say, "Then don't." It was a surrender, and they both knew it. Raphael's eyes darkened, and he kissed her again, softer this time, but no less intense. When he pulled back, he was smiling. "Come home with me tonight," he said. "Let me keep you close, keep you safe." Just for tonight. Sofia knew it wouldn't be just for tonight. She knew that once she crossed this line, there would be no going back. But she also knew she didn't want to go back. Against all logic, against everything she'd believed about herself, Sofia had fallen for Rafael DeLuca. "Okay," she whispered, "just for tonight." Rafael's smile was brilliant. He took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers, and led her out of the clinic. The guards were still outside, looking alert but unharmed, and Sofia tried not to look at the blood splattered on the sidewalk. Rafael ushered her into his SUV, keeping her close, his arm around her shoulders. As they drove through the city, Sofia watched the familiar streets of Brooklyn give way to more affluent neighborhoods. Rafael's home, when they arrived, was a mansion in a gated community, all stone and iron and old-world elegance. "I should have known you'd live somewhere like this," Sofia said, as Rafael helped her out of the SUV. "What did you expect?" Rafael asked, amused. "A warehouse? A secret underground lair, maybe," Sofia admitted, and Rafael laughed. Inside, the mansion was beautiful but warm, filled with comfortable furniture and family photos that humanized the space. Rafael's mother appeared from somewhere in the house, took one look at Sofia, and broke into a wide smile. "Dottoressa Marin," she exclaimed, pulling Sofia into a hug. "Rafael told me he was bringing you. I'm so happy. Come, come. You must be hungry." "Mama," Rafael said in exasperation. "Give her a moment to breathe." But Sofia found herself smiling at the older woman's enthusiasm. "It's fine," she said. "And please, call me Sofia." "Sofia?" Rafael's mother repeated warmly. "Such a beautiful name. Come, I've made dinner. You're too thin, Cara. My son isn't feeding you enough." Over dinner, which was another incredible Italian feast, Sofia met more of Rafael's family. His younger sister, Isabella, was a lawyer, sharp and funny. His younger brother, Marco, ran the family's legitimate businesses, restaurants, and real estate. They were all warm and welcoming, treating Sofia like she already belonged. After dinner, Rafael gave her a tour of the house, saving his bedroom for last. It was spacious but surprisingly simple, decorated in shades of navy and gray. The bed was huge, and Sofia tried not to think about sharing it with him. "You can have your own room if you prefer," Rafael said. Reading her hesitation, "I don't expect anything, Sofia. I just want you here, where I know you're safe." Sofia turned to face him. "What are we doing, Rafael? Us, it's crazy." "Maybe," Rafael agreed. "But I've never felt anything like this before." "Have you?" Sofia thought about lying, but what was the point? "No," she admitted. "Never." "Then maybe crazy is okay," Rafael said. "Maybe we don't need to have all the answers tonight. Just stay with me. Let me hold you. Everything else can wait." So Sofia stayed. She borrowed one of Rafael's shirts to sleep in, and when she climbed into his massive bed, he pulled her close, wrapping himself around her like a shield. Sofia felt safer than she had in weeks, maybe years, and when she finally drifted off to sleep, it was to the sound of Rafael's steady breathing and the warmth of his arms around her. She woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. Rafael was gone, but there was a note on his pillow that made her smile. "Didn't want to wake you. There's coffee downstairs and my mother is probably already cooking enough food to feed an army. Take your time. I'll be in my office if you need me." Our Sofia stretched, feeling more rested than she had in months, then patted downstairs in Rafael's shirt and her clothes from yesterday. She found the kitchen easily, following the sounds of cooking and conversation. Rafael's mother was indeed preparing what looked like a feast for breakfast, and Isabella was sitting at the kitchen island with a cup of coffee. "Good morning," Isabella said with a knowing smile. "Sleep well." "Very well," Sofia admitted. Accepting the cup of coffee Rafael's mother pressed into her hands. "My brother has been insufferable for weeks," Isabella said. "Talking about you constantly, making sure your guards were the best, sending you gifts. I'm glad you're finally here." "He's very persistent," Sofia said. "He's in love," Isabella said simply. "It's about time, too." Rafael has been married to his work for too long. Sofia's heart skipped at the word love. But before she could respond, Rafael himself appeared in the doorway. He'd clearly been working already, dressed in slacks and a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. But his face lit up when he saw Sofia. "You're awake," he said, crossing the kitchen to drop a kiss on her forehead as naturally as if they'd been doing this for years. Good morning," Sofia said, feeling her cheeks warm at the casual intimacy. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Rafael showed her around the property, introduced her to more of his people, all of whom treated her with a respect that bordered on reverence. Sofia began to understand that saving Rafael's life had made her almost sacred in their eyes. She was under the family's protection, and anyone who hurt her would face their wrath. It should have been terrifying, but instead, Sofia found it oddly comforting. Over the next few weeks, Sofia found herself splitting her time between her clinic and Rafael's world. She still worked during the day, treating her patients with the same dedication she always had, but her evenings now belonged to Rafael. He would pick her up after work, sometimes taking her to family dinners at the mansion, other times to quiet restaurants where they could talk for hours. He wanted to know everything about her, where she'd grown up, why she'd become a doctor, what her dreams were. Sofia told him about growing up poor in Brooklyn, watching her mother clean houses to pay for Sofia's education. She told him about medical school, the crushing debt, the determination to come back and serve her community. She told him things she'd never shared with anyone, and Rafael listened like every word mattered. In return, he opened up about his own life. His father had died when Rafael was 22, forcing him to take over the family business before he was ready. He'd made mistakes, he admitted, lost people he cared about, made enemies that would never forgive. But he'd also protected his family, built an empire, and earned the loyalty of hundreds of people who depended on him. "I'm not a good man, Sofia," he told her one night as they sat in his study, her feet in his lap while he absently massaged them. "I've done things, terrible things. I won't lie to you about that." "I know," Sofia said quietly. "But you're also the man who brings food to my patients, who made sure Mrs. Chen's rent was paid when she couldn't afford it, who donated a new X-ray machine to my clinic anonymously." Rafael looked up at her, surprised. "You knew that was me." "Who else would it be?" Sofia said with a small smile. "You're not as subtle as you think." Rafael laughed, pulling her closer until she was sitting in his lap. "You make me want to be better," he said. "When I'm with you, I feel like maybe I can be the man you see when you look at me." "You're already that man," Sofia said, cupping his face. "You just don't see it yet." He kissed her then, deep and slow, and Sofia felt herself falling even further into whatever this was between them. She was past the point of denying it. She was in love with Rafael DeLuca, and that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. But loving Rafael meant accepting all parts of his life, including the dangerous ones. That reality came crashing down on a cold January evening when Sofia was working late at the clinic. Rafael had called to say he'd be delayed, something about a meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. Sofia told him not to worry. She had guards, and she'd be fine. She was updating patient files when she heard the front door crash open. Before Sofia could react, 3 men burst into her office, all armed, all wearing masks. Her guards were nowhere to be seen, and Sofia's blood ran cold. "Dr. Marin," one of them said, "you're coming with us." Sofia's medical training kicked in, forcing her to stay calm. "If you're sick, I can help you here," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "There's no need for weapons." The man laughed. "We're not sick, doctor. But your boyfriend? He's going to be very sick when he finds out we have you." Sofia's mind raced. These were Rafael's enemies, using her to get to him. She thought about fighting, about screaming, but there were 3 of them, and they were armed. So she did the only thing she could. She went with them, memorizing every detail she could for when, if, she got out of this. They took her to an abandoned warehouse on the docks, the kind of place that appeared in every crime movie. They tied her to a chair in a cold, empty room and left her there with 1 guard, while the others went to, as they put it, "Let DeLuca know what we've got." Sofia's guard was young, probably early 20s, and he seemed nervous. He kept shifting his weight, checking his phone, looking anywhere but at her. You don't have to do this, Sofia said quietly. Whatever they're paying you, it's not worth it. Rafael will come, and when he does, people will die. Maybe you. Shut up, the young man said, but his voice wavered. I'm a doctor, Sofia continued. I help people. I've never hurt anyone. Is this really who you want to be? Someone who kidnaps innocent people. I said shut up, he repeated. But Sofia could see she was getting to him. She was about to try again when she heard gunfire outside. The young guard's head snapped toward the door, his gun coming up. Sofia's heart pounded. Rafael had found her, which meant all hell was about to break loose. The door exploded inward, and Rafael stood in the opening like an avenging angel. His suit was torn, there was blood on his face, and his eyes were absolutely feral. The young guard barely had time to raise his weapon before Rafael shot him in the shoulder. A non-fatal wound, but enough to disarm him. Then Rafael was cutting Sofia's bonds, his hands shaking as he checked her for injuries. Are you hurt? He demanded. Did they touch you, Sofia? Talk to me. I'm okay, Sofia said, though she was trembling now that the danger had passed. I'm okay, Rafael. I'm not hurt. Rafael pulled her against him, and Sofia felt him shaking too. If they had hurt you, he said into her hair. If they had laid one hand on you, Sofia, I would have burned this city to the ground. I know, Sofia whispered. I know. More of Rafael's men flooded into the room, securing the scene. Rafael kept Sofia close as they made their way out of the warehouse, and she saw bodies on the ground, some moving, some not. She tried not to look too closely. In the SUV, Rafael held her so tightly she could barely breathe. But Sofia didn't complain. She could feel his heart racing, could sense the fear he'd been holding back. This powerful, dangerous man had been terrified for her, and that realization made Sofia's eyes sting with tears. I'm sorry, Rafael said. This is my fault. They took you because of me. They took me because they're bad people, Sofia corrected. That's not on you. Everything that happens to you is on me, Rafael said. I pulled you into this world. I made you a target. And I chose to stay, Sofia said firmly, pulling back to look at him. Rafael, look at me. I chose this. I chose you. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, I'm scared sometimes. But I'm not leaving. Do you understand? I'm not leaving you? Rafael's eyes were suspiciously bright. You're too good for me, he said roughly. Probably, Sofia agreed. But you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her fiercely, desperately, and Sofia kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, Rafael rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he said. Sofia's breath caught. What? Marry me, Sofia, Rafael repeated. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I can't lose you. I can't risk someone taking you from me because they think you're just my girlfriend. Be my wife. Let me protect you the way you deserve. Let me spend every day of my life making you happy. Sofia's mind was spinning. They'd only known each other for a few months. It was insane. It was reckless. It was everything she'd never thought she'd do. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll marry you. Rafael's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He kissed her again, softer this time, full of promise and hope. When he pulled back, he was already pulling out his phone. Marco, he said when his brother answered. Get Father Thomas. Tell him to open the chapel. I'm getting married tonight. Tonight, Sofia squeaked. Rafael, we can't get married tonight. Why not? Rafael asked. I love you. You love me. Why wait? Because, Sofia started, then realized she didn't have a good answer. Because that's not how it's done. But when had they ever done anything the traditional way? Besides, Rafael continued, the sooner you're my wife, the sooner everyone in this city knows that touching you means death. No one will dare come near you. That's very romantic, Sofia said dryly, but she was smiling. I'm a practical man, Rafael said, grinning. But if you want romance, I can give you that too. I'll give you everything, Sofia. I swear it. And he did. The wedding that night was small, just family, held in the private chapel on the DeLuca estate. Sofia wore a simple white dress that Isabella had somehow produced in under an hour, and Rafael wore his best suit. His mother cried through the entire ceremony, and Marco served as best man, his smile wide and genuine. When Father Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Rafael kissed Sofia like it was the first and last time, pouring everything he felt into that moment. Sofia felt tears streaming down her face, but they were happy tears. She'd never imagined her wedding would be like this, rushed and unconventional, but it was perfect because it was them. The reception was equally impromptu, held in the mansion's dining room, with food that Rafael's mother insisted on preparing despite the late hour. There was champagne and laughter and toasts that made Sofia blush and Rafael beam with pride. To Sofia, Marcos said, raising his glass, "The only woman brave enough or crazy enough to marry my brother. May you have a long and happy life together, and may you never let him forget how lucky he is." "Hear, hear," everyone chorused, and Sofia felt warmth spread through her chest. These people, this family, they'd welcomed her completely. She was one of them now. Later, when they were finally alone in Rafael's, their bedroom, he took his time undressing her, kissing every inch of skin he revealed. "You're mine now," he murmured against her throat. "Completely mine." "I was always yours," Sofia admitted. "From the moment you opened your eyes and asked my name. I just didn't know it yet." Rafael made love to her slowly, thoroughly, mapping her body with his hands and mouth until Sofia was trembling and gasping his name. And when they finally came together, it felt like coming home, like finding the piece of herself she hadn't known was missing. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweaty and satisfied. Rafael traced lazy patterns on Sofia's bare shoulder, and she could feel him smiling against her hair. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Not even one," Sofia said honestly. "You. Only that I didn't find you sooner," Rafael said. "Think of all the time we wasted not knowing each other." "We have time now," Sofia pointed out. "Years and years of it." "Forever," Rafael corrected. "I'm keeping you forever, Sofia DeLuca." Sofia smiled at her new name. "I like the sound of that," she said. "Good," Rafael said, pulling her closer. "Because you're never getting rid of me." The first months of marriage were an adjustment. Sofia kept working at her clinic, though Rafael insisted on even more security and a complete renovation of the building. He also, without asking, paid off all of her medical school debt, which led to their first real fight as a married couple. "You can't just do things like that without telling me," Sofia had shouted, waving the paid-in-full notice. "That was my responsibility, Rafael." "You're my wife," Rafael had shouted back. "Your responsibilities are my responsibilities. I have the money. Why should you struggle?" "Because I need to feel like I'm contributing," Sofia said. "Like I'm not just some kept woman." Rafael had stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "Kept woman," he repeated incredulously. "Sofia, you save lives every day. You work yourself to exhaustion helping people who can't help themselves. You've made me a better man just by existing in my life. You contribute more than I ever could." Sofia had felt her anger deflate. "Oh," she said quietly. "Yes, oh," Rafael had said, pulling her into his arms. "I'm sorry I didn't discuss it with you first. But I'm not sorry I did it. I want you to be free of that burden. Please, let me do this for you." Sofia had agreed, but she'd made Rafael promise to consult her on big decisions in the future. He'd agreed, though Sofia suspected he had a very different definition of big than she did. But for every fight, there were 100 moments of perfect happiness. Rafael would show up at her clinic with lunch, sitting in her office while she ate and telling her about his day, carefully editing out the illegal parts. Sofia would come home. She still couldn't believe she got to think of the mansion as home, to find him waiting for her, ready to hear about her patients and her challenges. He supported her dream of opening a second clinic in another underserved neighborhood, donating the money and the building without hesitation. When the clinic opened 6 months after their wedding, Rafael was there cutting the ribbon beside her, looking proud enough to burst. The life of a mafia wife wasn't what Sofia had expected. Yes, there were dangers, moments when she worried about Rafael coming home, nights when he'd leave for meetings, and she'd watch the clock until he returned. But there was also love, fierce and unconditional. There was family, loud and warm, and always there. There was purpose, using her skills and Rafael's resources to help more people than she ever could have alone. On their first anniversary, Rafael took Sofia to Sicily, to the village where his father had been born. They walked the cobblestone streets, ate at family-owned trattorias, and Rafael showed her the church where his grandparents had been married. "Someday," he said as they stood in that ancient church, "someday I'll bring our children here, show them where they come from." Sofia's hand moved unconsciously to her still flat stomach. She'd found out 3 days ago but hadn't told Rafael yet, waiting for the right moment. "Someday soon," she said softly. Rafael looked at her sharply, his eyes dropping to where her hand rested. "Sofia," he said carefully. Are we?" "I'm pregnant," Sofia confirmed, and watched as pure joy transformed Rafael's face. "We're going to have a baby." Rafael let out a whoop that echoed through the empty church. Then he was lifting Sofia and spinning her around, laughing like a child. "A baby," he kept saying. "We're having a baby." When he finally set her down, he immediately dropped to his knees, pressing his face to her stomach. "Hello, little one," he said. "This is your papa. I don't know if you can hear me yet, but I want you to know something. You have the best mother in the world. She saved my life, and now she's giving me you. I promise I'll spend every day making sure you both know how loved you are." Sofia ran her fingers through his hair, her eyes wet with tears. "You're going to be an amazing father," she said. "I'm going to try," Rafael said, standing and pulling her close. "God, Sofia, I never thought I could have this. A wife, a baby, a real family. You've given me everything." "You gave me everything too," Sofia said. "Purpose, love, a family. You gave me a life I never dreamed I could have. We gave each other everything," Rafael said, kissing her softly. "And we're just getting started." Sofia's pregnancy was surprisingly easy, though Rafael became impossibly overprotective. He wanted her to stop working at the clinic, which Sofia flatly refused. They compromised on reduced hours and a strict no emergencies policy. Rafael had other doctors on call to handle anything dangerous, leaving Sofia to focus on routine care and management. The family was ecstatic about the baby. Rafael's mother immediately began knitting tiny sweaters and planning the nursery. Isabella bought every baby book she could find and gave Sofia unsolicited advice about everything from cribs to breastfeeding. Marco started talking about teaching his future niece or nephew about the family business, the legitimate side, which made Rafael roll his eyes but smile. But the pregnancy also made Sofia more aware of the dangers of Rafael's world. She started asking questions about his business, about the violence, about the enemies who might target their child. Rafael tried to shield her from the worst of it, but Sofia insisted on knowing what they were up against. One night, about 6 months into her pregnancy, Sofia confronted Rafael in his study. "I need you to be honest with me," she said. "Completely honest. How dangerous is your life? What are the real risks to our family?" Rafael looked at her for a long moment, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit," he said. "This might take a while." He told her everything, about the rival families, the constant negotiations and power plays, the violence that was sometimes necessary to maintain control. He told her about the people he'd killed, the orders he'd given, the blood on his hands. He didn't spare himself or make excuses. "I can't change who I am, Sofia," he said when he finished. "This is my world. But I swear to you, on our child's life, I will do everything in my power to keep you both safe. If you want out, if this is too much, I'll understand. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere far from here, and I'll never stop you from leaving." Sofia had listened to all of it, her face neutral, her hands resting on her swollen belly. When Rafael finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not leaving," she finally said. "I meant my vows, Rafael, for better or worse. But I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Rafael said immediately. "Promise me you'll be careful," Sofia said. "Promise me you won't take unnecessary risks. Because this baby," she placed his hand on her stomach, where their child was kicking. "This baby needs a father, and I need my husband. So whatever you have to do to stay safe, do it. Delegate more, let others take the risks, be the man who comes home every night. I promise," Rafael said. And there was a rawness in his voice that told Sofia he meant it. "I'll be careful. I'll come home, always." Their daughter was born on a sunny morning in May, after 12 hours of labor that Rafael endured right beside Sofia, holding her hand and whispering encouragement. When the baby finally arrived, squalling and red-faced and perfect, Rafael cried openly. "She's beautiful," he said, his voice choked with emotion as he held his daughter for the first time. "She's perfect, Sofia. Look what we made." Sofia watched her husband cradle their newborn with infinite gentleness. This dangerous man reduced to tears by 7 pounds of baby girl, and she fell in love with him all over again. They named her Elena Marie, after both grandmothers. Elena had Rafael's dark hair and Sofia's lighter eyes, and from the moment she arrived, she had the entire DeLuca family wrapped around her tiny finger. Rafael's mother practically moved in, helping with night feedings and diaper changes. Isabella bought Elena an entire wardrobe of designer baby clothes. Marco started a college fund with enough money to put 10 kids through school. But it was Rafael who surprised everyone. This man who commanded respect through fear, who made grown men tremble, spent hours just staring at his daughter in wonder. He changed diapers without complaint, handled night feedings so Sofia could rest, and refused to let anyone else hold Elena for the first week unless Sofia needed to sleep. "I never knew I could love something this much," he told Sofia one night as they watched Elena sleep in her bassinet. "It's terrifying. Now I understand what you meant about being careful. If anything happened to me, if I left you both alone, nothing is going to happen to you," Sofia said firmly. "You promised, remember?" "I remember," Rafael said. "And I'll keep that promise. I'll be here, for both of you, for as long as I live." Life settled into a new rhythm. Sofia went back to work part-time at her clinics, with Elena spending mornings with her grandmother and afternoons with Rafael in his home office, where the fearsome Mafia boss conducted business calls with a baby sleeping on his chest. Sofia would come home to find them like that, Rafael working on his laptop with one hand, while the other supported Elena, and her heart would melt every time. Elena's first birthday was a massive celebration, the kind of party that only the DeLucas could throw. There were hundreds of guests, more presents than one baby could ever need, and enough food to feed the entire neighborhood. Sofia watched Rafael hold Elena on his hip, introducing her to various family members and associates, and she couldn't stop smiling. "Hard to believe it's been a year," Isabella said, coming to stand beside Sofia. "Seems like yesterday Rafael showed up at my apartment, shot and half dead, talking about the angel who'd saved him." "He told you about that?" Sofia asked, surprised. "He called me from your clinic," Isabella said, "before he passed out again. Told me he'd met someone special, someone who made him want to be better. I thought he was delirious from blood loss, but he was right." "I don't know if I've made him better," Sofia said doubtfully. "Are you kidding?" Isabella said. "Sofia, my brother was a workaholic who only cared about power and control. Now look at him." She gestured to where Rafael was dancing with Elena to the music, making exaggerated faces that had the baby giggling. "He's happy, really truly happy, in a way I've never seen before. That's all you." Sofia felt tears prick her eyes, pregnancy hormones still making her emotional even a year later. "We saved each other," she said. "I saved his life that night, but he saved mine too. He gave me purpose beyond just surviving, beyond just working myself to death trying to fix everything. He gave me love, family, a future." Isabella hugged her. "Welcome to the family, Sofia. For real this time." As the party continued, Rafael found his way back to Sofia, Elena still in his arms. "Dance with us," he said, pulling Sofia close with his free arm. So they danced, the three of them, in the middle of the crowded ballroom. Elena's head was on Rafael's shoulder, already drowsy from all the excitement. Sofia leaned into her husband's side, feeling safe and loved and incredibly grateful for the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. "You saved me," Rafael murmured into Sofia's hair, echoing words he'd said so many times before. "And now you're mine, both of you, forever." "Forever," Sofia agreed, looking up at him with all the love she felt shining in her eyes. "Though technically, I think you're ours. Elena and I have you pretty well trained." Rafael laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Best training of my life," he said. Years passed, and the DeLuca family grew. Elena was joined by a son, Luca, 2 years later, and then another daughter, Isabella, named for her aunt 3 years after that. Rafael's mother often joked that Sofia and Rafael were single-handedly repopulating Sicily, but she said it while knitting another tiny sweater, so no one took her complaints seriously. Rafael kept his promise about being careful. He stepped back from the more dangerous aspects of the business, delegating to trusted lieutenants and focusing more on the legitimate enterprises. He was still the boss, still commanded absolute loyalty, but he came home every night for family dinner, helped with homework, and coached Luca's soccer team. Sofia expanded her clinics to 5 locations across Brooklyn and Queens, employing over 30 doctors and serving thousands of patients. She'd found a way to use Rafael's resources for good, funneling money into medical care, education programs, and community centers. The neighborhoods they served started to transform, becoming safer and more prosperous. Their 10th anniversary fell on a quiet Tuesday in September. The kids were at school, and Rafael had cleared his schedule completely. He took Sofia back to her clinic, the original one where she'd saved his life all those years ago. "This is where it all started," he said, as they stood in the exam room that was now used for storage. "I was lying on that table, bleeding out, and then you appeared. My angel in scrubs." "I wasn't an angel," Sofia said. "I was terrified. You were bleeding everywhere, and you had these dangerous people with you, and I thought I'd made the worst mistake of my life." "And now?" Rafael asked, pulling her close. "Now I know I made the best decision of my life," Sofia said. "You walked into my clinic that night, Rafael, but in a way, I found you too. I'd been so focused on surviving, on just getting through each day, that I'd forgotten how to really live. You reminded me. You showed me that life could be full and rich and beautiful, even when it's complicated." "You did the same for me," Rafael said. "I was so caught up in power, in control, in maintaining the family legacy, that I'd lost sight of what it was all for. You showed me that family isn't about power. It's about love, sacrifice, being there for each other, no matter what." They kissed in that exam room, surrounded by medical supplies and memories, and it felt like coming full circle. From doctor and patient to husband and wife, from strangers to soulmates, they'd traveled an impossible journey together. "Come on," Rafael said, taking her hand. "I have something to show you." He drove her to a building she didn't recognize, in a neighborhood that had been rough when they'd first met, but had since been revitalized. The building was beautiful, all glass and steel, and above the entrance was a sign that made Sofia's breath catch: the Elena Sofia Community Medical Center. "Rafael," Sofia whispered. "What is this?" "It's yours," Rafael said. "A full-service hospital for the community, state-of-the-art equipment, funding for 5 years of operations, scholarships for medical students who want to work in underserved areas. Everything you've ever dreamed of building, Sofia. It's my gift to you, to us, to the city that brought us together." Sofia was crying now, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Rafael had done. She threw her arms around him, holding tight. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Thank you," Rafael said, kissing her tears away. "For saving my life, for loving me, for giving me everything that matters. I'm the luckiest man alive, Sofia DeLuca, and I will spend every day proving that to you." Years continued to pass, and the DeLuca family thrived. Elena grew into a brilliant young woman who wanted to be a doctor like her mother. Luca showed an aptitude for business that made his father proud. Little Isabella was still young, but she already had her mother's compassion and her father's determination. Rafael's mother eventually passed peacefully in her sleep at 87, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. The funeral was enormous, a testament to how beloved she'd been. Rafael grieved deeply, but found comfort in Sofia and the family they'd built together. Marco married and had children of his own. Isabella became a judge, using her position to fight for justice in the system. The DeLuca family's reputation slowly shifted, from feared criminals to respected community leaders, thanks in large part to Sofia's influence and Rafael's willingness to change. On their 20th anniversary, Rafael and Sofia sat on the terrace of their home, watching the sunset. The kids were inside with their cousins, loud and chaotic and perfect. Rafael held Sofia's hand, their fingers intertwined as naturally as breathing. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Marrying me? This life? All of it?" Sofia thought about the question seriously. She thought about the danger she'd faced, the fear, the nights she'd waited up worrying about Rafael. She thought about the criticism she'd received from people who couldn't understand why a doctor would marry a mobster. She thought about all the ways her life had become complicated. Then she thought about Rafael's smile when he looked at their children. She thought about the thousands of patients they'd helped through her clinics and the hospital. She thought about the love that filled their home, the family dinners, the laughter, the joy. She thought about waking up every morning next to the man who'd loved her fiercely from the moment he'd opened his eyes and seen her face. "Not for a single second," Sofia said. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Rafael DeLuca. You saved me, now you're mine. Remember." Rafael laughed, pulling her close. "I remember. Though I think you have it backwards. You saved me, and I'm definitely yours. Always have been, always will be." They kissed as the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. From inside, they could hear their children laughing, their family celebrating, the life they'd built together continuing to grow and thrive. Sofia Marin had walked into her clinic one rainy night, expecting just another quiet evening alone. Instead, she'd found her destiny bleeding on her examination table. She'd saved Rafael DeLuca's life that night, not knowing that he would turn around and save hers in every way that mattered. They said opposites attract, and perhaps that was true. She was a healer, he was a fighter. She followed rules, he made his own. She'd been alone, he'd been surrounded by people, but together they'd found balance. They'd created a love story that shouldn't have worked, but did, beautifully and completely. As darkness fell and stars began to appear in the sky above them, Rafael stood and offered Sofia his hand. "Come to bed," he said, with a smile that still made her heart skip after all these years. Sofia took his hand, let him pull her up and into his arms. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of the heart she'd saved. The heart that now beat for her and their children. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," Rafael replied. "My angel, my wife, my everything. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for giving me a reason to," Sofia said. They walked inside together, hand in hand, into the home they'd built and the life they'd created. Behind them, the city lights began to glow, the same city that had brought them together in the most unlikely of ways. And ahead of them stretched the rest of their lives, full of love and family and the certainty that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin in the most unexpected places. The end.